In the early 2000s, Bollywood looked across the ocean and saw gold. Not just a genre, but a formula. The American teen slasher. A genre built on sustained dread, on paranoia, on a sense of shared, soul-staining guilt. And in 2003, they tried to bring that home. The result? A film released with the promise of a chill running down your spine. Instead, it sent a wave of bewilderment through a generation. The patient on the table is Kucch, also known as Something Is There, and its cause of death was not a knife, but a deep-seated and irreconcilable tonal dissonance. It was a genre-bending, high-concept slasher musical. It's a Frankenstein's monster of a film, a chimera that was neither a convincing thriller nor a compelling romance. The fundamental flaw was its parentage. The film was born from Balaji Motion Pictures, the undisputed titan of Indian television's K-serials. This was a production house that had perfected its own blueprint: overwrought melodrama, intricate love triangles, and song and dance sequences that were essentially narrative full stops. A slasher relies on lean narrative, atmosphere, and suspense. The Balaji formula prioritizes knowable domestic conflicts and romantic angst. The film's producers thought that they could take the plot of I Know What You Did Last Summer and force it through this television filter. The critics saw it immediately. One Redditor even called it a K-serial with a fog machine. This video contains spoilers, so consider watching the film first before you continue. And if you like what you see, click the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to click the little bell to be notified for new videos. The very DNA of Balaji's television success became the poison that killed Kucch as a horror film. What a viewer might expect from a film with a chilling tagline is a swift descent into terror. But that's not what we got. The film opens with Tanya confessing to a priest about accidentally causing someone's death. This moment, a direct lift from I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, sets a suspenseful tone, only for the narrative to promptly abandon it for about an hour. The narrative lurches back to college life, introducing us to a familiar love triangle. We have Karan, who is in love with Tanya, and Natasha, who is secretly in love with Karan. This entire first hour is a frothy, lighthearted college romance, full of pranks and elaborate musical sequences that bring the story to a screeching halt. The film trains its audience to expect a romantic comedy, not a slasher. The film's core slasher premise is conspicuously delayed. We're almost an hour into the movie when the horror story finally begins. In an effort to help Tanya pass an exam, Karan and his friends sneak into a house of the menacing, hard-ass Professor Bakshi. There they discover a woman's corpse, and in their panicked escape, their car accidentally hits Professor Bakshi, sending him tumbling over the cliff, where he is presumed dead. This is a direct narrative lift from I Know What You Did Last Summer, but where the American film is about an experience of shared guilt and paranoia, Kucch treats the incident as a mere plot device. The characters exhibit little to no guilt, but Tanya is so traumatized that she decides to leave for London. The film jumps forward 3 years with the friends reuniting for a wedding in a remote, snowbound hotel. Tanya also returns, hoping to surprise Karan. It is here in the secluded setting that a mysterious hooded killer begins to stalk and murder the group one by one. The visual of the hooded killer with a sickle-like weapon is a direct appropriation of the iconic fisherman killer. Spoiler alert, from 1997, it's been 30 years. I don't feel sorry for you, his name is Ben Willis. The film's structural flaw is at its most apparent here. As one critic noted, the horror is sporadic and a tad underfed, making the eventual violence register as more confusing than frightening. In the promotional run-up to the film's release, the cast and crew were adamant that Kucch was not a remake. Tushar Kapoor explained, "Although the idea had been taken from the English film I Know What You Did Last Summer, it has been adapted to Indian traditions, treated quite differently from the original. But this also leads to the most sweeping failure of Kucch as an adaptation, lying not in what it copied, but in what it failed to understand. The process of Bollywoodizing the story resulted in the complete evisceration of the source material's thematic core. The American film, and the Lois Duncan novel on which it's controversially based, is fundamentally a story about guilt. The horror is a direct manifestation of the character's psychological torment and the consequences of their moral failure. The tension and grit of the original stem from this internal conflict. In Kucch, this central theme is entirely absent. The filmmakers stripped the story of its human turmoil and replaced it with melodrama. The so-called Indian cultural sensibilities that the filmmakers claim to have added manifest as a checklist of commercial Bollywood tropes. 90s-style college romance songs, elaborate dance numbers, a prom night, and a narrative dominated by love triangles. Even the ending is altered to provide a tacked-on, and they lived happily ever after moment, which feels awkward and unearned after the preceding carnage. This process reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of the source material. The producer's goal was not to thoughtfully adapt a horror story for an Indian cultural context, but to use the plot of a successful Hollywood horror film as a prefabricated container for their own pre-existing commercially safe Bollywood formula. They copied the what, a group of teens being stalked by a killer, but completely ignored the why, the thematic weight of guilt and consequence. This misinterpretation resulted in a hollow, soulless, and ultimately ineffective final product.
The Townsville celebrated element, the soundtrack, actively works against the suspense. Because they have the gall, the gumption, the unmitigated temerity to drop a certified banger like Ding Dong Delay right in the middle of the proceedings. And the audience has to spend the rest of this half-baked plot trying to forget that they were just taken to desert heaven on the back of a motorcycle. In a final melodramatic twist, the killer is revealed to be Natasha.
Why? तुमने ये सब क्यों किया?
Because I love you, Karan!
Her motivation is not vengeance for a shared secret, but her obsessive and unrequited love for Karan. This is where the film completely abandons the thematic core of its source material. In I Know What You Did Last Summer, the killer's motive is an unquenchable, if convoluted, thirst for vengeance following the death of his child. In Kucch, a campaign of brutal murder is reduced to a jealous tantrum over a college crush. This trivializes the preceding violence and contributes to the plot holes you could drive the Darjeeling Limited through that critics derided. Natasha confesses that she killed Kucch and Yash because they found out about her secret. That's it. That's the tweet.
ताशु रुक जाओ! ताशु
The film culminates in Natasha taking her own life and Karan and Tanya finding their way back to each other. This reliance on soap opera psychology within a slasher's world creates a fundamental mismatch, with the frothy soap opera tragic aspects and the slasher film's over-the-top theatrics rubbing against each other with no lube and making for an unpleasant experience. So, what is the legacy here? Commercially, it was a flop. Critically, it was universally panned, with Reddit branding it the worst horror remake Bollywood ever attempted. It's a textbook case of what not to do with a remake. And yet, over 2 decades later, a secondary legacy has emerged. For a generation who grew up with it, Kucch has become a nostalgic, guilty pleasure. The very flaws, the absurd plot, the jarring songs, have acquired a certain camp appeal. It's a testament to the fact that while critics judge a film as a cohesive work of art, audiences can develop an affection for its broken parts. American fans of Prom Night, Sleepaway Camp, and Jennifer's Body should be familiar with this. Kucch is, by almost every objective measure, a failed film. But in its spectacular failure, it offers more insight into the mechanics of its industry than a dozen box office hits. It's a perfect, chaotic snapshot of a moment when an industry's commercial formula proved fundamentally incompatible with the soul of the genre. It may not be a great film, but it is, without a doubt, an unforgettable one. Stay cool, stay safe, wash your hands, return your shopping carts, make good choices, and I'll see you next time.